О, привет! Привет всем! Let's see. Like this. There we go, guys. Привет! Hello, everyone. Nice to have you guys. I hope you actually enjoyed the song because it's amazing. I love it. The band is amazing. Let's just check. There we go. So, last stream was like 2 years ago. 2 years ago. 2 weeks ago. So we're going to continue where we left off last time. This stream we're going to cover the next 4 letters, which would be ch. Then we have sh, sh, and the last one, yer. But before we start, there's a few things I would like to say, just like always. I'm not a linguist. I'm not a theologian. I might make some mistakes. If I make some mistakes, feel free to correct me anytime. Just write it down in the chat. Let me know, or in the comments later on. Just let me know, because there's a lot of stuff we have to cover, and a lot of it is quite complicated. So if I do make any mistakes, please let me know. There's a few people I would like to thank for the Greek stuff, which isn't like, I don't think we will cover any Greek words today, but Leonidas and Julius, thank you so much. And then Van Dog, thank you for helping me out with the Russian translations and the Old East Slavic translations, because this was pretty complicated, especially the last two ones. But we're gonna see what we will do and how far we get. So let's just check, just a sec. Odlično. Then, yeah, please. The intro song was provided by Kazachki ensemble, Stanica Moskovskaya. I linked them in my description. So if you guys want to check them out, please do. They're amazing people. I called them, I sent them several emails. I talked to them for quite a long time. They gave me permission to use their songs in my videos and in my streams. So please check them out. They're amazing. I love their music. And the song that I used right now is linked in the description as well. And then that should be it, I think. I think we can start. So let's start off where we left off last time. We did ts. So the next letter would be ch. Does anyone know the original name of this letter? Maybe someone knows. Maybe like the original name and the original meaning, if someone knows it. Oh, Krsk. Nice to have you, man. Exactly. So the original name in Old Church Slavonic actually would be something like Tsareve, which was rendered into Old East Slavic with metathesis, meaning that two letters change positions. So it was rendered into that as Cherve, and eventually this became pre-revolutionary Russian, Cherv, and modern Russian, Che. So in 1917, 1918, the old names got purged, and they got new names. And the numerical value, because as you guys might already know, at least most of these Cyrillic letters have a numeric value. But the numerical value of this letter is kind of interesting because it changed. Originally, it didn't even have a numerical value. So just like some other letters that we're going to cover, it didn't have a numerical value, but as time progressed, it actually took over the role of a different letter. So in the early Cyrillic alphabet, we had a different letter, which was called kopa. And this letter was borrowed from the Greeks. It was one of the two ways ancient Greeks could write the letter K, if I believe correctly. But kopa fell out of use and kappa took over. And this letter was rendered into Old East or Old Church Slavonic, but it didn't have any phonetic value. And it was never used unless the number 90 had to be represented. So we covered 80 and 70 before. So whenever they wanted to write the number 90, they would use kopa. But this changed slowly over time. People realized that maybe using a letter which didn't have a phonetic value wasn't the smartest thing, wasn't the most useful thing. So they switched, and kopa lost its numerical value, and che took over. So this happened, well, we have evidence that this happened as early as the 11th century, but we have texts from the 14th century, and that is when it consistently starts taking over the role, right? So in the 14th century, it's officially and definitely taken over by Cherv, which means worm, by the way. So worm, and then worm, and eventually became Che. there's some other interesting things. We actually have manuscripts from some Western Cyrillic varieties in which the kopa, like the Greek one, right, which was rendered into Old Church Slavonic, was actually retained. So they kept using it, even though it didn't have a phonetic value, but the ch started representing the value 60. So the letter xi, which is also from Greek, lost, like they dropped it completely, and they started using both kopa and che as different letters. So let's move on to the pictures. It's quite a few. So the first one is Cheremcha. Cheremcha. We can see it's a kind of tree. Well, it turns out that this is a specific type of tree. This is what we call a bird cherry or a hagberry, which is this beautiful tree, and it's native in like the northern parts of Europe and Asia, and has these beautiful white flowers, very specific white, nice smelling flowers. So if you're native to like the northern European parts or northern Asia, you can see these trees. They're pretty abundant. Like you can find them pretty much anywhere. Very, very common trees. And the name of this tree actually evolved. So the original name was Cheremcha, but as Russian phonology changed, it eventually, the second ye became a yo. So we have Cheryomcha. And this was the most prevalent form of the name of this tree until the 19th century, when a different form got adopted, which was Cheryomucha. So Cheryomucha. And this came to Russian from Proto-Slavic, so this is a native Slavic word. And a Proto-Slavic word for this would be something like Chermcha. Your supremacy. Exactly. Then we have the second one, which would be chvan. This isn't used in Russian anymore. So this word, at least, right? So this would be a jug or a pitcher in English. And modern Russian would be kuvshin or zhban. So chvan itself isn't used anymore. But in Church Slavonic, so if you go to church, if you attend Mass in Church Slavonic, you can actually encounter this word. You can still hear it. And this comes from Old East Slavic, chvana, which means vessel or jug or a bowl. Then if we go on, the next one is an interesting one, chasha. Most Slavic languages have this word, but the meaning kind of shifts. So in Russian, the meaning is a bowl or a chalice, sometimes a cup, usually not. Usually it's a bowl. And the modern Russian word would be exactly the same thing. So it's chasha as well. But in Old East Slavic, it had a different meaning as well. So it didn't only have the meaning of like a drinking vessel or a bowl or a chalice. Specifically a chalice which was used during Mass, so during liturgy. It also had a different meaning, and that was fate or destiny. I don't know why, but both in Old East Slavic and in Old Church Slavonic, one of the meanings of this word, chasha, was destiny. So if you encounter it in a specific context, it could actually talk about your future, your destiny, usually related to God. Sounds like chance. I don't know. I really don't know how it developed, but I did encounter several sentences, specifically in Old East Slavic, in which it meant destiny, but it was mostly used in ecclesiastical context. So yeah, that's a very interesting word. Then the next one would be chesnok. In Croatian, this would be chesnyak. Same in a lot of different Slavic languages. So this would be garlic. Same thing in modern Russian, chesnok. In Old East Slavic, there was a different word for this. They also had chesnok, but they had a quite a longer word for this, which would be chesnovitace, with the same meaning. And then in Proto-Slavic, which is where this word comes from, it's a native Slavic word. This was something like chesnaka, so with two sounds. Then the next one, we have chernilnica. quite a mouthful. It's like an inkwell or inkbot. Consists of two different parts. So one word consists of two different words, chernila and nitsa. Chernila being ink, which probably comes from chorny, which in Russian means black. So in Proto-Slavic, this would be something like cherna, black. And then next one would be chasy. In Old East Slavic, this meant clock or a watch or hourglass. Basically, it could mean anything. But in modern Russian, because there's so many different types of watches, if you want to specify that we're talking about like an hourglass, we would use something like песочные часы. So a clock which runs or works on sand, right? So not only часы, meaning clock, but sand clock. And this word is the plural form, actually, and it comes from Old East Slavic chasa, meaning time, hour, or clock, which itself comes from Proto-Slavic chasa, meaning hour. Now we have this word, which isn't used in Russian anymore. This is very archaic. Chpag, meaning pocket or a bag. And the modern Russian word for this would be something like karman or sumka. So karman being pocket and sumka being bag. Karman is probably a Slavic word. I found that in Old East Slavic they had a form kudman, but it didn't mean pocket. It actually meant raincoat, something totally different. But the etymology of chpag isn't really known. I couldn't find anything, but it is used in Church Slavonic. So in Church Slavonic, you can hear it. It means pocket. And in Old East Slavic, you can also find it, but it's written like chepag, and it means pouch. Just a sec. I didn't even realize I was muted. I just kept talking. Guys, what was the last thing you guys heard? Because I've been talking for quite a while. I didn't know I was muted. Oh, chbag. Okay. Because I thought I unmuted myself, but I didn't. Okay, thank you guys for waiting. So, chbag. So the next one would be cheren, which is a regional Russian word. Standard Russian uses a different form, and that would be cherenok, meaning handle. And in Old East Slavic, it had two different meanings. So it both meant stem and handle, which comes from Proto-Slavic cherna, meaning stem, right? And then I honestly thought I was unmuted. I was talking for quite a while. I was like, huh? Wait. Okay, so the next one, this one, cherta, meaning line. But in Old East Slavic, it meant two different things. And it said line and boundary. So in Old East Slavic, we had line and boundary. And in Proto-Slavic, this would be something like cherta, meaning line. And then we have this one, which is a boat, a specific type of boat, which is a canoe or a small river boat, chelm. In modern Russian, it contains a yo, which would be choln, which comes from Proto-Slavic chilna, meaning small boat. And then this one, cherpala, ladle in English. And modern Russian doesn't use this word anymore either. It's polovnik, but in Church Slavonic, you can still hear this word, and it still means bucket or ladle. And it comes from Old East Slavic, cherpati, meaning to draw, ladle, or scoop. And then this one, same thing as in modern Russian, although the spelling is different. So in modern Russian, this would be cheshuya, right? Which is scales of a fish, cheshuya, or a different type of armor, like the ancient armor, scale armor. And then the text, okay, this one is quite doable. It says, "I человек червь псаломский назвася." So, "I человек червь псаломский назвася." I, and, man, worm. Okay, so, and man, worm, псаломский назвася. And so this would be a form of назвать, назваться, right, to be called, псаломский, in the Psalms. So translated, this would be something like, and the man was called worm in the Psalms, which sounds kind of strange, right? But this is actually a reference to the Bible, to a specific psalm in the book of Psalms, which is a part of the Old Testament. It depends on what religion you follow, right? So in Catholicism, this would be Psalm 22, while in Orthodoxism, this would be Psalm 21. But in the English version, this psalm starts off with, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Maybe you guys have heard of that. It's pretty famous. And it basically talks about this person who's crying out to God to save him from taunts and torments of his enemies. It's quite a long psalm. And basically, the English one, which the Protestant one, which follows the Catholic one, basically says, "But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of man and despised of people." So this could actually refer to that one, in which man, or the person who says this, basically calls himself a worm. And in Church Slavonic, this would be "Аз же есмь цервь, а не человек, поношение человеком и уничижение люди." So, interesting that you can see that this letter is a ps, right? This is a digraph. Well, it basically originally was a digraph, PS, but they took this from Greek. So this was originally a Greek letter, and it was adopted into Old Church Slavonic with the sound ps. specifically for Greek words. So usually when you encounter a word with psa, it will be written in with this special letter. But the thing is that only holy words are written with a psa, especially after the reform of the 18th century. Because all of these other words like psa, so the genitive of pios, dog, was usually written with psa because it didn't deserve the exclusiveness or the beauty of the Greek letter psa. Sometimes you can encounter it, but usually it's quite rare. So this was only used in special occasions, right? And then we have this one, червь пища мисли, which is interesting because it looks like мекли, right? But this is червь пища мисли, где бы ты создася. So, червь пища мисли, while где бы ты, where existence, быть, in this case, isn't only быть, to be in modern Russian, but also existence, создася. So where existence is created, червь, so this letter, пища мисли. So while writing this letter, think, мисли, imperative, where your existence was created. And then we have чашу учений юным почерпати. So чашу учений, so a cup, right? A cup of учение, so a cup of knowledge, юным почерпати. So with your youth, so this would be the instrumental case, with your youth, exhaust. So drink from it, absorb it, right? Let me just read what you guys said. Wiktionary says Proto-Slavic черп meant skull. Skull? Interesting. I didn't know that. Slavic rooftop, probably consonant roof apparently. Wow. The origin of bag seems to be fuck. Interesting. Yeah, I couldn't find anything about this shpag. It was I looked in several different books and none of them had any explanations for this word. It's kind of strange. But okay. Let's continue with the next one. So slovis. So we can see titlo, right, which means that the word is shortened. This is the short form, and this is an X. So sloves blagich, dolg, čertu, soblюдати. So this would be something like with words. Sloves would be slovies, something like with words. Blagich meaning good. Dolg, which is duty, right? So something like of words, a genitive plural, of words with good duty, čertu soblюдати. So listen to or obey the boundaries or lines. Then в човну разума в книгах поезжайся. So in a boat, this one, look at this. Right? So this is written with a ye, and this is written with a o, meaning that this was probably already pronounced like čoln, even though it was written with a ye. So čoln v čolnu razuma, so like in a boat of reason. In books, travel. Проезжайся. So travel in books in a boat of reason, right? Which is beautiful. We have the next one, something like людям избранным везде приобщайся. So людям, to the people, избранным, so chosen, to the chosen people, везде, meaning everywhere, приобщайся. So be among the chosen people everywhere, or try to be at least, right? Because it's difficult in life. So try to be among the chosen people, the good people everywhere. Чеснока, грехов, всяк не вкушай смрада. So this would be of the onion, garlic, of the garlic, грехов, so of the garlic of sins, всяк, everyone, not taste, stench. And in this case, this would probably something like sniff, right? Because you cannot taste. Well, I mean, kind of, but you can sniff or smell the stench. So of the garlic of sin, everyone not smell the stench. Garlic of sins. It's so metaphysical, poetic. It's beautiful. And then the next one, čpag, poln. And then look at this one. Look at how beautiful this is. So we have dobr, a, and then we have g, omega. So dobrago. So čpag, poln, dobrago, svobodit od. So this is the letter we covered last week. Od glada. So this would be something like pockets filled with good. Freeze. So he, she. Freeze from hunger. Then черемха древа, same thing as last week. So this would be the bird cherry is a tree. Есть, so is. Ягоды рождает, so gives or provides or gives birth, right? In Ultra Slavonic you have рождати, which means to bear or to produce. In this case it's probably produce, right? Черемха древа ягоды рождает. Примет в ясте, кто в смысл успевает. Beautiful. So this would be accept, примет. So принимать, something like accept or take in eating. So to eat basically. Кто, who, in understanding, успевает, something like succeed. So to the person who succeeds in understanding. Very deep text. И человек червь псаломский назвася, червь пися мисли, где быти создася, чашу учений юным почерпати, словес благих долг черту соблюдати. В човну разума, в книгах поеждайся, людям избранным везде приобщайся. Чеснока грехов всяк не вкусяй, смрада, чпак, полн, доброго, свободит от глада. Черемха древа ягоды рождает, примет в ясте, кто в смысл успевает. Beautiful. This is one of my favorite ones. I actually love this. It's so, the rhythm, everything rhymes. It's beautiful. It's so nice. Pretty pictures as well, right? Let me just grab some water. Ready for the next one. Let's go. If there are any questions, just let me know, because we're going to continue with the next one. So, sh. Bukva sha. We can see the different forms. This is the Polish form, which we can see, just like last time. But there is no Greek form, because Greek doesn't have sh, at least not here. These beautiful ones, 3 women, and the different letters, or the different letters, different words. So we have 7 different words. First one doesn't exist, at least in its modern form, in Russian anymore. This would be shirinka. And in all these Slavic, it had 2 different meanings, 2 main meanings actually. First one was handkerchief, which is this little, piece of paper, well, not paper, but cloth you carry with you. Handkerchief. And this specifically, it's a type of towel or cloth which is used in Orthodox churches to put underneath an icon, not to keep it clean, but to make it even prettier, right? It's a specific kind of cloth, and there are several texts, especially in the 14th century, in which it could also mean something like towel. So towel or cloth or handkerchief, all of these are basically possible. Greek had a th for sh for a bit, but I don't think that was standard. Bursa, do you know anything about that? Yeah, exactly. Perfect, did. So that would be, or diet probably, right? So that would be platok in modern Russian. So modern Russian, that would be platok, полотенце, salfietka. There's a lot of different ways of saying it. But Van Dog actually told me that it does mean something in modern Russian, and that is a zipper. So the official name for a zipper would be something like molnia, but there's a different form which or a different in like some contexts it can also mean zipper, which is specifically the ones on your pants, which is kind of funny. But it is used, interestingly enough, it's used in Church Slavonic, and in Church Slavonic it means a towel or a specific type of decoration, and it can even also mean a napkin. And this comes from Old East Slavic, and there is a Greek word for this. It's like podia, which is also used in Old Church or Old East Slavic, and this is the kind of apron, right, that you put on the foot of icons, which is what I already talked about. And the etymology is kind of, I don't know, kind of disputed. People don't really know, but it probably, at least that's what makes sense to me. It comes from shirina, which means with. So that would be possible. Yeah, Porsa, exactly. It was in the Hellenistic kingdom of Bactria. Oh, nice. Podia. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, this would be shuba, which is an amazing word. Shuba, which is a fur coat, still used, which actually comes from a Germanic language, from Middle High German, shuba, which comes from Italian, juba, or giuba, which comes from Arabic, juba, which traditionally in Arabic it meant this long garment or a cloak. And I don't know if guys know this, but yubka, which is the modern Russian word for a skirt, actually also comes from the same Arabic word. So juba, the Arabic word for cloak, gave rise to both yubka through French and shuba, meaning fur coat. But one went through French and the other one through Italian. And then we have this one. Shishak. This was a specific type of helmet, a specific type of battle helmet. And in English, this is called a lobster tail pot helm. And this was, at least it became popular in like 1600. And it was derived from this Ottoman Turkish helmet type. But it fell out of use in the late 17th century. So it didn't really stick around for a long time. So if it comes from the Turks, the name is probably Turkish as well. And it turns out that it most probably is, because there's this Ottoman Turkish word, çiçek. And there's a different form, çiçek, meaning flower. And why flower? Like helmet and flower, how is that related? That's because the top part of this helmet looks like a flower, because it was welded in a specific or shaped in a specific way in which the top part kind of looked like a flower. And this gave rise to like different, like basically it spread through Ottoman Turkish, it spread to a lot of different languages. So in Hungarian you have shishak, in Polish you have szyszak, and in German you have Zischage. So there's a lot of different forms of this language. There's some other sources which basically claim that it's just a different form of the word šljem, like Old Church Slavonic šlem, meaning helmet, but this is kind of, I don't know, it doesn't really sound plausible. So most probably this comes from a Turkic language, most probably Ottoman Turkish. Now the next one, shilo. Shilo is an awl, which is this pointed instrument for piercing small holes. It's not really used anymore, but shoemakers use it, saddlers as well, making these small specific holes. And this comes from Proto-Slavic, so this is a native Slavic word, shidlo. In Proto-Slavic, we have a different word for this, which is shiti, which means to sue, right? And there's actually, in modern Russian, there's this expression, which is «Shila в мешке не утаишь», which in English would be murder will out, which is a phrase as well. And it basically means something like a murderer will always be discovered. So in that context, in that phrase, you can still encounter it. No way. It is. I checked it. So I don't think I made a mistake. I think that would be, I think it's correct. And then Pursa, same in Pontic Greek. Chichek. Ah, nice. It's weird that it was borrowed as Shishak instead of Chichak. Well, Ch and Sh aren't too far apart, right? It could happen. Also, менять шило на мыло. Не знаю, что это значит. Можешь объяснить, пожалуйста? It was borrowed like because Shishka on top of the helmet. To change two things of same value. Менять шило на мыло. Понятно, да. Well, that's nice. To change two things of the same value. Next one. Shar. Etymology is disputed. We don't know where it comes from, but in modern Russian and in this text, it means ball, right? A ball or a balloon. And in Old East Slavic, it didn't mean ball. It meant paint or color, because in Old Slavonic, it also meant color. Shar or shara in Old Slavonic. But we don't really know how this changed, at least not that I could find. None of the etymological dictionaries explained how this word came to be. Shar. Next one, shapka, which is a knit cap. There we go. Or a hat. Basically, a shapka is a hat that's used when it's cold, right? These fur hats or just warm hats in general, which comes from Old East Slavic, shapka, meaning male headgear. So it wasn't used for females. Females had a different word for that, or they had a different type of garment or headgear. So shapka was specifically for males. And etymology probably entered the language through Polish, like a lot of other words, because Polish has szapka, which comes from Middle High German Schapel, which comes from Old French chapelle, I think. Chapelle. In Old French, this meant cape. And that comes from Latin kappa. Kappa, right? Kappa, which means a cape. So when you trace it back, it probably comes from Latin, meaning cape, or sleeveless coat, but in this case, cape. There's a second word for hat in Russian. Actually, there's quite a lot, but it would be shляпа. Shляпа comes from either Bavarian Schlappe or German Schlappe, which was borrowed in the 16th century. The difference is that shляпка is basically a hat that you wear when it's warm. Like it's a different kind of hat. It's not a fuzzy one, not warm. So top hats can be called shляпа, but usually aren't. So шапка, shляпа. So maybe it was borrowed like that to change two things. Also, Sheila в жопе, meaning enthusiastic and super active person. Nice. In Macedonia, shara means like a pattern. Shara in Old Slavonic means color. Yes, sha, French. Also, there's the word chapelle, but it means certain helmet. Okay, I didn't know that. Interesting. Now we have this one, shachmaty, which is chess in Russian. Shachmaty, which comes from Old East Slavic shachmaty, and I thought that this was, I knew that this looked shach, right? So that chess was around for a long time, but I found a text, checkmate, exactly, in which from the early 13th century, and it was basically already attested back then. So that's been part of the Russian vocabulary for centuries, like ages. And like Yata said, exactly, this comes from Persian, and it comes from shachmat, which in Persian translates to king is amazed. So the king is amazed. And then you might ask yourself, but if he's amazed, like in modern languages, shachmat means the game is over, right? You killed the king, you finished the game. Well, that is because mat might be confused with the Arabic word mat, which means to die. So this might be shach, meaning king, the king dies, or the king is amazed, if it comes from only Persian. If it comes from Persian and Arabic, this could be the king died. And basically the source that I used said that it was both from Persian and Arabic, and then it was borrowed into Romance languages with the sense of the king has died, the game is over, which is interesting. Давайте, следующая часть. Давай, so the text. King rip, shach, shach nach shach, right? So the king of kings in Old Persian. В славяно-русском письме ша языте. So in Slavo-Russian, Slavo-Russian. So look at this, Roskom. In modern Russian, we say something like Ruski, all right? Ooh. But Russian comes from Greek, not the language, but the word. So Россия was written with an omega because it was written with an omega in Greek. So this word, or this writer, uses the Greek standard. So we have Slaveno-Roskom pismya sha yazite. So in the Russo-Slavic language, yazite, so tse, in modern Russian this would be k, pismya sha. So is the letter sh is written имеет дело писатися флите. This is very complicated. It's very hard to translate. So we, Dog and I, translated this like something like in the Russian Slavic language, the letter sh, so letter sha, has some kind of affair or is in a relation with writing in a face. Lice in a face. This doesn't really make a lot of sense. We looked through a lot of different dictionaries and we couldn't find any meaning of the word lice, face, right, in the face, that could make sense in this context. So we don't really know what this means. I have no clue. In the Slavo-Russian language, pismya, so this would be, can mean a lot of different things. This can mean azbuka, letter, manuscript. So in the script, sha, in the language, will have a relation written in a face. So if someone knows or understands this, please let me know, because I have no clue. I really don't know. Then, шапка потребна и жене, и мужу. So this would be a hat is needed for a wife, or a wife and a husband both need hats. Ширинка всяку отирати нужу. This is a very interesting sentence. So shirinka, we encountered this before, right? In this sentence, this means handkerchief. Handkerchief всяку, to everyone, so dative. To everyone, handkerchief. Otirati, so we'll wipe away. Нужу. So нужда, in modern Russian would be something like need, right? But there's a different meaning in Old East Slavic, a very rare one, and it could mean grief, pichal, in modern Russian. So this could be something like, which makes sense, right? Towel or handkerchief, to everyone will wipe away sorrow. For a woman and a man. I think in this case it means husband and wife. Because in Old Church Slavonic this could mean wife and woman, but muž specifically means husband in this case, right? I think this is husband and wife. Yata. Face might be in a sense of typeface, like a font, design. See, that would make sense, but I don't think that's attested. It would make sense, right? It's very complicated. So, шила в домстве, шишак в полках нужен. So, an owl and all in housekeeping, and a helmet is needed in regiments, right? Maybe it's nosha. So this would 100. This definitely means grief, because the other meanings just don't make sense. But it is attested in Old East Slavic, so that's good. So we have proof of this. It's not just me. Then we have the next one. Юноше, бывай людям всем услужен. This is a very interesting sentence. So we have юноше, this is the vocative case. So addressing someone. So young one, бывай, be. Людям, to people, every, услужен, so helpful. So young one, be helpful to everyone. Right? Яко шар везде. It's one of my favorite sentences. Яко шар везде, в службе ты or ти катайся. This would be like a ball everywhere in service or duty. Ти катайся. So you roll. So like a ball, you have to roll around, metaphorically, right, to your service or duty. But actually, there's a modern Russian equivalent, which is кататься как сыр в масле. Thank you, Van Dog. And it basically means to feel comfortable. So this could also mean something like a ball, or in duty, you should feel comfortable, right? You should feel at ease. В игре шахматов не велми считайся. Just a sec. So, and this would be in a game of chess, not a lot. So velmi in Old East Slavic meant a lot. This isn't used in modern Russian anymore. Считайся. So don't be too engaged, involved in games of chess. Like, don't let it, get you all emotional. Без того можно иметь забаву. So without that, or without, it's possible to have fun, right? So without that, it's possible to have fun because you won't be too engaged. Next one. This is a word which is still used in Bulgarian. Tokmo, which means только in modern Russian. So only do everything or create everything. Tokmo все твори на Божью славу. So only do everything for or to God's glory. So this is a ecclesiastical reference to end this one off. Славяноросском письме ша языце имеет дело писатися в лице. Шапка потребна и жене, и мужу, ширинка всяку отирай ты нужу. Шило в домстве, шишак в полках нужен, юноша бывай людям всем услужен. Яко шар в езде, в службе ти катайся, в игре шахматов не вельми считайся. Без того мощно иметь забаву, токмо все твори на Божью славу. Again, it rhymes. So, next one. This letter has an interesting story because it developed differently in different parts of the Slavic world. What sound did ch and sh make? Retroflex. They were probably not retroflex. Let me check, actually. Let me check. I don't want to say it incorrectly. So basically, Lunt also says it's post-alveolar. But it's kind of difficult to say for certain, right? Because We don't have direct evidence of this, but usually people would use something like postalveolar. Okay, so this letter basically changed or went through different development patterns in different parts of the Slavic world, specifically the eastern parts and the southern parts. In the southern Slavic world, this letter meant shta. So in a word like shta, like what, this was used. And in the Old East Slavic part of the world, so the eastern parts, this was shcha. All right, so in Old Church Slavonic, this letter was called shta, and then Old East Slavic shcha, and then eventually, as time progressed, this letter started changing again in the East Slavic world or Eastern Slavic world, because by the turn of the 20th century, so 1900, different pronunciations were used in different parts of Russia. In Moscow, people would pronounce it like sh, while in St. Petersburg, people would use the sh pronunciation. And eventually, the Moscovian pronunciation took over, and everyone started pronouncing it like sh. And then they started palatalizing it. So instead of sh, it became sh, like the modern sound, right? The letter doesn't have a numerical value, so it's probably onomatopoeic in nature, so there's no specific name. It doesn't mean anything. The form of the letter is interesting because different people say different things, like how it was created. Lunt basically says that this wasn't a digraph, because as you can see, this letter basically looks like a sh with a t, right? Shta. So he said that this wasn't a digraph. But the interesting thing is that he doesn't give any arguments for this. He doesn't provide, the readers with a reason why he doesn't think that this is the case. He basically says it's obvious that it's not a digraph, but then doesn't explain it, which is basically like the Chad move, right? Say something, don't explain it, and then leave. Basically. But there's different people like Alexander Schenker, Nandris, and Huburgaev, who basically say that this is a digraph. I personally agree with these guys because to me, it looks like a digraph. Plus, the Glagolitic form of this letter also is basically a digraph. It's as if someone took these two letters and put them on top of each other. Was it geminated? It is. Exactly. Even in modern Russian, it's geminated. So sh, it's a longer sound, right? Then, here we go. Oh, the interesting thing is for all of you guys that actually studied Russian, I have a question for you because this is something that I was interested in. So when I started studying Russian, the resource that I was using basically was describing different sounds of the alphabet, right? And one of these sounds was for this letter, and it described the sound of this letter as sh. So I decided to look this up because I was like, okay, but no one in Russia pronounces it like that. Everyone will pronounce this letter like sh. So I checked a different site. I checked it today, and it basically says that this website that I looked on, it says that this letter is pronounced like sh, ch, like in French, cheese. That's the example that they give. So I'm wondering, because every single resource that I used basically instructs the reader to pronounce it like that, even though no one really pronounces it like that anymore. There are certain regions that do, but these are mostly rural regions, and it's declining rapidly. Like no modern speaker of Russian, of the standard language, will pronounce this like sh. At least I've never met any, and I've asked a lot of Russian natives, and none of them pronounce it like that. It's usually like sh. Why is it geminated in modern Russian? I don't know. I do know that there was, in the 18th century, there's a text by Lomonosov, which basically describes it as a long sh. So sh. And then that long sh, so sh, sh, two sounds, and then that one palatalized and made or created sh. As far as I'm aware. Then these different words. First one, Yeah, so because this text is written in the 17th century, right? The end of the 17th century, we're going to be using the pronunciation that they used then. So that would be shche. We're not going to use modern pronunciation. So in Russian, this would be shchiptsi, which is tongues or pliers. Same thing as in modern Russian. And the etymology is basically like nozhnice in modern Russian, which is scissors. So it's the plural form. And it comes from shipat, meaning to pinch or to pluck. Bulgarian standard language has a dark L for L, even though everyone says w. Yeah, like Polish, right? And if I ask Bulgarians a lot of time, they don't even realize they're saying w. Usually people ignore the fact that it's Romanized as chance. Yeah. Yeah, you guys are right. Then the next one, this one, Szczeglenok. Szczeglenok, right? So the accent would be this, Szczeglenok. It's kind of difficult to pronounce. This is a specific type of bird, or a finch, a goldfinch chick. So, which is a passerine bird in a finch family, and it's native to Europe. If you guys studied evolution, you've probably heard about finches, which is these little birds that Darwin basically studied and saw that on different islands they developed differently, like the beak shapes changed because they had access to different food types. So these finches can be found pretty much everywhere, but this specific one can only be found in Europe. And why would it be here, right? Why just a random bird? It's because it actually has a theological value. It has a Christian value. And that is because in the Italian Renaissance, paintings of Mary and Jesus usually contain this bird. So if you find like a painting from Italy with Madonna, right? So Mary and Jesus, you will probably see this bird in the background or somewhere. And that's because it's associated with Christ's passion. And it's not passion as in, passion for something. Passion actually comes from Latin patior, which means suffering, or passus sum, which is also where English patient and patience comes from. It comes from suffering, which is interesting. So why this bird? Well, this bird basically feeds on thistle seeds, which is a specific type of plant with thorns. Which makes it, people associated that bird with the crown of thorns, which is the crown that was put on Jesus's head. And therefore, people started drawing it and associating this bird with the last stages of Jesus's life. So it has a lot of theological value, which is why it's drawn, probably why it's drawn. He doesn't elaborate on this, so he doesn't cover it later, but that's what I think. Then the next one, which would be this one, Szczuka. This is basically the same thing in all Slavic languages, at least as I'm aware. So this is a pike, huge fish, carnivorous fish, which is, you can find it pretty much everywhere, at least in Europe. In southern Slavic languages, they use shta, right? So in Croatian, this is štuka, which means thing in Russian, funnily enough. But Szczuka in this stage of the Russian language. Then we have Ščit, which means shield. You can see it right here, like the not a weapon, right, but the thing used to defend yourself, which comes from Old Slavic šite, which was attested like in the 11th century, so ages and ages ago, which comes from Proto-Slavic, and then comes from Proto-Balto-Slavic sketa, which comes from Proto-Indo-European ske, meaning to cut or separate or split, which is rather interesting. And then we have this one, which is ščet or ščete in Old Slavic, and this would be a brush. The modern Russian form of this would be shotka, again, shotka, but this is like a specific type of brush. It's not a regular one, but it was one that was used for combing like linen and wool. So ščete in Old Slavic, or ščet and ščet, and in this period. Okay, the text. This is a bit more difficult, but we're gonna get through it. So let's go. Kromie szczyta nieść moszczno wjeżdżaty. So kromie basically usually in Russian means something other than without. So in modern Russian, bez means without, right? In this case, in Old East Slavic, kromie is also actually attested as without. So without szcze, so without this letter, szczyta, so that would be szczyta, actually, my bad pronunciation, szczyta nieść moszczno wjeżdżaty. So without the szcze, nieść, nie jest, combination, not is, moszczno possible wjeżdżaty, to protect, or wjeżdżaty, to say. This is Old East Slavic. We have the verb wjeżdżaty or wjeżdżaty, meaning to say, and in modern Russian, it doesn't really mean that anymore. It usually means wjeżdżać, which is to broadcast. So it's associated with TV and not saying things directly, right? So kromie, so without the szcze, it's impossible to say szczyt. So without this letter, you cannot pronounce shield. Учением может ся, so difficult, защищати. So with learning, может, he, she can, всяк, everyone, ся, himself or herself, protect. So with learning, can everyone protect themselves? In modern Russian, this would be защищать. So щище, and in this period, this would still be something like szcze. So защищати. Защищати. Try to say that 10 times. Okay, next one. Щипцами свещи в ясность отирают. So with pliers, в ясность, to clarity, отирают. So cleaning. So to clarity, you will clean with pliers candles. So a candle you will clean to brightness, right? Because wax falls down. So this would probably be something you have to clean it with a more spiritual meaning, as probably to clean your soul or something like that. Is it related to shipok, like a little? Good question. It could be. It actually could be like a diminutive form, right? That would make sense. Then юні світлі в чистоте бывают. Светлые в чистоте бывают. So young people, right? Юны, so plural, young people. Светлые, so light. This would be pure. В чистоте, impurity бывают, so will be. Something like young people are pure, or will be pure, right? При умных людях, so in front of or among smart people, при щитах сидите. So something, this is complicated because it's something like in front of or among smart people, sit with shields. Сидите, so тюять. So sit with shields, не велят щити в гордости имете. So this would be something like among smart people, при щитах, so in front of shields or with of shields, sitting, not allowed, щиты, щеты, so that would be this, right? A brush, in pride, have. Not allowed to have brushes in pride, basically, which might be a reference to something, but I don't know. Stuff like, we will encounter this in the next text as well. There's a lot of complicated constructions that don't really make a lot of sense, at least to modern speakers, right? So this refers to like brushes of pride, something related to pride, and this says that you should raise your, not raise, but sit with your shield with smart people. Might be a reference to that you don't know who you can trust or be protected or something like that maybe. If anyone knows or anyone has any ideas, please let me know. Словесах, so this is х, мудрых и старых стеряют. So this is words of the wise and old. So mudra, right? Wise, и старых, and old ones. Смиряют. So in Croatian this would be make someone calm someone down, but смирять in modern Russian means to humble someone. Maybe they're shaming writers, artists in favor of soldiers, warriors. That's interesting. При умных людях, при щитах сидите. I don't know. The thing is, he doesn't dislike artists. He was an artist himself, right? He was a writer himself. But it might be possible. The next one. На всяко дело мерность поучают. So on every matter, right? На всяко, on every matter. In modesty, something like that. Поучают will teach you, which is archaic Russian. Wouldn't be the first to hate himself. Ooh. It's close to home. Okay, so next one. Всем умным душам. So we can see the titlo, right? The short form. Titlo, м. И всем умным душам требен щит законы. So to every smart soul needed shield of the law. So all smart souls need the shield of the law. Цвет имут быты в рай сладковоны. So цвет would be something like flower. Flower have быты. So they will have flowers, even though this is singular. So that's kind of strange. They'll have flowers in raj, which would be heaven in Slavic. Sladkovony, so sweet smelling heaven. So this would be кроме щита несть мощно вещати, ученням может всякся защищати. Щипцами свещи в ясность отирают, юни светлые в чистоте бывают. При умных людях, при щитах сидите, не велят щеты в гордости имети. Словесах мудрых и старых смиряют, на всяко дело в мудрость поучают. Всем умных душам требен щит законы, цвет имут быты в рай сладковоны. Ubu. Nice. Last one, guys. Last one. This is where it starts getting fun, right? This is the letters that don't have any phonetic value. First one, normal text in Polish. This is going to be the first letter. Can someone tell me the name of this letter, please? Does anyone know? I'm not looking for the... Yeah, Yata, that's the modern name. I'm looking for the pre-revolutionary name. The one that was used before it got changed. Perfect. Yer. So, in Old Slavonic, this letter was called yer, which eventually was transported into Old East Slavic, yer, and same thing, Nothing changed until the revolution of 1918, in which the new names got adopted. In modern Russian, this name would be tвердый знак. Tвердый знак meaning hard sign. But as one of the reforms of the Bolsheviks, basically they purged a lot of letters, one of which was this letter. And they purged it in every single case. So modern Russian still uses it in certain cases. An object, for example, an example of that would be in the word object, объект. You write it with ob, tвердый знак, ект, right? That is because in front of, when a consonant is followed by front vowels like ye and i, basically the preceding consonant gets palatal or softened, right? So объект, right? But the hard sign, when you insert that, it basically states or shows you that the consonant isn't palatalized. So it's not объект, it's объект, right? And because of this reform in 1918, an interesting thing happened, and that is an orthographical difference between Belarusian, Ukrainian, and Russian. Because in like the 1920s, the Bolsheviks readopted the yer, but they didn't adopt it as a final marker, but they adopted it as a marker of, showing that a consonant isn't palatalized. But this wasn't adopted in Ukrainian and Belarusian. So Ukrainian and Belarusian kept using the Bolshevik, pre-Bolshevik orthography and kept using the apostrophe. So instead of writing объект with a tвердый знак, Ukrainian decides to use an apostrophe. So ob apostrophe ekt, which is a very interesting difference between these, orthographical difference between these different languages. So they use the apostrophe while Russian uses yer. Where does this sound come from? So it comes from Proto-Balto Slavic, in which there was a short u sound, and then eventually in the Slavic tongues, in Common Slavic, this sound got reduced, and to the quality of this vowel is unknown. We're not sure what the quality was. There's different, or the phonetic value of this letter, but there's several options. One that's usually taught in schools is just a schwa, so something like that. It's easy to pronounce, but there's a different option which is usually used by Russians and Bulgarians, and they basically say, Lunt uses it as well, and it basically says that it's the vowel of the vowel U in put, right? Put, that sound. So it could be either that, it could be it could be something more, a bit less open. There's a lot of different possibilities. Divyat, perfect, exactly. So this eventually got reduced, and then two different things happened. Depending on the position, but this is a little bit too complicated for the stream. Depending on the position of this yer, it either disappeared completely or it changed, and the vowel changed into an O. So an example of this would be the something like let's take the Old East Slavic word for sun, or not sun. Wait. Let me think of something. Like dream. Dream would be an example. Something like sun. So if I pronounce it with schwas, right? Sun. The final yer got dropped, so that would be sun, and this sound eventually became an O. It makes sense for it to be a back vowel. It does. Some people even go as far as saying that it was an I, but it's really difficult to decide what to use because different sources use different, they use different vowels. Some of them use schwa, some of them use it like a more back vowel, like right? Something like that. And this change, so this is called the fall and vocalization of the years, basically happened somewhere in the 11th or 12th centuries. So sun became son in like the 12th or 13th century. Why did this happen? That's because in Old Slavonic and in Old Common Slavic, basically you had a law of open syllables, which basically means that every syllable of every single word had to end in a syllable, right? So some of these letters, some of these vowels basically disappeared. So why was it written? Why did they write this if it didn't have any phonetic value? Well, it's because of tradition. That's the most obvious answer. They were pretty conservative when it came down to changing the way they were writing. It did happen. You can encounter manuscripts from the 14th century in which none of these letters yet were written, mostly to conserve space or for different reasons, but it was usually due to tradition. There's several different theories surrounding why it wasn't used. One of these theories is basically that it makes reading easier. And you might wonder, like, how does an additional letter make it easier? Well, because you should think or keep in mind, basically, that in a lot of old texts, there were no spaces. So all of this stuff that you see right here, sometimes some words are put together, but they're not one word. And it can be pretty complicated to know what is one word and where, one word ends and where the second one begins. And a yer was usually the final letter of a word that ended in a vowel or in a consonant. So by reading and seeing this yer, you could see that the word had ended, making reading easier. That's one of the theories. There's a second theory. There's a guy on YouTube, Sin Mikitko Alexeyevich, I think. I don't recall the name. But he made a whole video on this. It's all in Russian. There's no English subtitles or anything. So that's kind of sad. But he made a video on this. Amazing, very, very smart guy. And he basically also states that a different theory was... Mikitko Sin Alexeyev. Отлично, спасибо. He's a Russian linguist who makes a lot of videos about Russian topics, old Russian stuff, Древнерусский, Old Slavonic, development of different Russian features, but it's all in Russian, right? And so if you speak Russian or a different Slavic language and you can understand Russian, I highly suggest you check it out. But basically, he states, gives a different theory that it's kind of interesting. So if you look, yer basically points to the right? So it points that way. B points that way as well. V as well. So it basically had to do with the direction that all of these letters were pointing. So if too many letters were pointing to the left, like ch, it would create some kind of disbalance. I'm not sure that is the actual reason. I think it all has to do with tradition, but it's a very interesting theory. He in his video he covers it, so if you guys are interested in that stuff, please check him out. So it's probably due to tradition, right? So it didn't even have a value. Like, they were writing it until 1918 or 1917 to be exact, but it didn't really do anything, at least phonetically. So let's get to the words. First one, strelец. In modern Russian, this is still used, and it means Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius, which is this. Excuse me, just a sec. Which is a zodiac constellation of a centaur, right? It was an archer shooting like an arrow. And the etymology is interesting because it's strela, so that would be arrow, right? Plus a suffix et. And strela, like in Proto-Slavic, contains a yat. So this shouldn't be a ye. This should actually be a yat. But this is a common mistake. So in Proto-Slavic there was a yat, same thing with piesok. A lot of the times writers didn't really know where to use what. So this is just an honest mistake. So strelец, arrow, arrow thrower, right? Arrow shooter, something like that. In Old East Slavic, it had different meanings, so it wasn't always Sagittarius. It could also mean strelok in modern Russian, which is a shooter, a rifleman, but it's also the name of strelцы. For everyone who plays EU4, you've probably heard of them. These elite Russian army units from the 16th century who were armed with firearms. So it was a word that specifically referred to these guys. Strelцы. We have this one, korob. So this would be a box or a chest, which comes from Old East Slavic korob, from Proto-Slavic korba, meaning basket. And this one, kotiel. This is a cauldron. In modern Russian, it can also mean a boiler, or in Old East Slavic, it also meant a shared supply of food. And the etymology is very interesting because in modern Russian, this is not kotiel, it's katyol. So this is a yo sound. This comes from Proto-Slavic kotela, which means kettle or cauldron, which comes from Gothic of all languages. So it was borrowed from a Germanic language like chlieb, right, like bread, from katils, Gothic, meaning kettle, which took it from Latin. So Latin katilus, in which it meant small bowl, dish, or plate. Then look at this beauty. First of all, the drawing is pretty, but can someone see the problem with this word? Can someone spot the issue? Bursa, oi, grci, katili. Nice. Can someone spot the mistake in this word? Oh, you guys are too smart for this. Like, I shouldn't even stream. Exactly. It's about zelo, z. I explained this in this stream in which I talked about the letter z, but just a quick recap, right? So in the Old Slavic period, or in Proto-Slavic, you had two different sounds. You had z and z. They were different. And basically, in the late Old Slavic period, the difference became blurred, and z often switched and turned into z, which is part of the Second Slavic palatalization. But Ultra Slavonic still had this sound. So the region of Thessaloniki, right, and a bit north of that, these Slavs on which the Ultra Slavonic script or language is based, still pronounce it like a z. The thing is, in the east and the northern parts, especially in the upcoming few centuries, this letter completely disappeared. It didn't stick around in any shape, way, or form. But the old Slavic scribes, or Old East Slavic scribes, didn't want to remove the letter. They wanted to keep the letter. So they started thinking of reasons why they should use it. Written because of association with the devil. Ooh, you're onto something. So basically, they wanted to find a certain, environment in which they could use that, not even etymologically. So just if they wanted to use it in certain words, they would use it, which leads to a period of several hundred years in which it was completely arbitrary. And then in the 16th or 17th century, 18th century, different rules were made in which certain words were always written with a z, and other words were always written with a z. And in the 18th century, the list of these words was zviezda, which is star, which is etymological, like gwiazda, I think it's in Polish. Zvier, meaning beast or animal. This is not etymological. You have dzelje, meaning grass, herbs or vegetables. Dzlak, meaning herbs. Dzli, meaning evil or wicked. And dzmi, serpent or dragon. And zielo, which is the name of this letter. Most of these letters or words aren't etymological, so there was no z in these words. But why were they picked? I actually made a Reddit post on this because I tried to find this out. Well, one of the theories, which is what actually talks about or mentions, is that it had some kind of theological value, either positive or negative. So zviezda might be related to the Star of Bethlehem, right? The star that when Jesus was born. Zvier could also mean devil. So not only animal or beast, but devil. So it deserved some kind of special letter. Zelje, grass herb, was seen as something from God. You know, it provides food. Zlak, same thing, herbs. Zli, evil, wicked. Same reason as dzier. It was special. It was evil, either evil or good. Dzmi, serpent, dragon. In some contexts, it even meant devil. So in that context, it was also written with a z. Again, evil meaning special, letter. And dzielo, which is simply the name of the letter. So just so you guys know, the z disappeared from Russian in like the early stages of the language. So in this period, it was 100% pronounced like a z, right? Maybe it looks like a snake, which is associated with the devil. Perfect, Pixel. That actually makes sense, right? So it even looks like a snake. Zmi. So this is still the period in which it wasn't regulated that much, right? So it was completely arbitrary. And this writer, Istomin, decided to write this with a z. So ka-ziol in modern Russian. In this case, he writes it like kodziel or koziel. Just a sec. Okay. Next one, babr. Babr, right? All these Slavic. So this is a word that's not used in modern Russian anymore. And it comes, does anyone know where it comes from? So while someone guesses, I'm going to explain it. So this is the old Russian word for tiger or panther or leopard. And it could mean a lot of different carnivorous animals, dangerous ones. While in modern Russian, it's panter, tiger, and leopard, I think. And it can actually be seen on the coat of arms of Irkutsk, which is a very distant eastern city in Russia. I think it's bordering like Mongolia. During this period, so the 17th century, it basically was also the old name for a specific type of tiger, which is a Siberian tiger. In Russian, that would be Ussuriski tiger, Siberian tiger. So no one guessed it. So this actually comes from Persian, babr, tiger. And this comes from Middle Persian, babr, same thing, which meant tiger, lion, or panther. And we're not quite sure where it comes from. The stage before Middle Persian. One of the options is Sumerian, urbara, which it meant outside dog or predator, which is kind of interesting. Outside dog. The next one, bagor. This is a gaff in English. It's basically a tool consisting of a large metal hook that you can use. It's usually used for ships, but a gaff usually has one hook, while this one has 4 hooks, right? So this one actually looks more like a grappling hook. And in Russian, a grappling hook would be something like abordajnaya koshka, which comes from French. Abordage, meaning like to board something, and koshka meaning cat, so boarding cat, which is nice. And all these Slavic, you have a lot of different forms. So you have like bagre, bagire, bagre, bagore, like different forms of this word. No one really knows where the word comes from. One of the options is like Old Norse, because a lot of weapons, a lot of names for weapons and tools come from Old Norse, because Rus was invaded by the Vikings, right? Which created, or who created the state of the Rus. So in Old Norse, that would be batgar, meaning boat hook. That's one of the options, but we're not quite sure. This is the most difficult text we've covered in this whole series. It's really, really tough and difficult. So, письменность деер, тако образ носит. Образ носит. So, письмяно, written, здесь. This is a short form of здесь, meaning here, ер. So this letter is written here. Тако, like this. Образ, appearance or shape. Носит, carries. So the written here is this letter, like a shape that it carries. So this is the shape that it has. В слогах речений, в письме место просит. So in syllables, речений, this can mean a lot of different things, but the most probable would be either saying or sentence. So in the syllables of a saying, in writing, в письме место, so this would be place, место, right? Просит, so is asking for a place, or the ye is asking for a place in the syllables of sayings or words. Где Бог, so short form, где Бог в начале кую вещи, or вещь устроил. So this would be where God in the beginning, в начале, this is how the Bible starts, where God in the beginning, кую, this is какую, so short form, which isn't used anymore, вещь, thing, устроил, created. So when God in the beginning created everything. Ты, you, бо, юноше, there's an exclamation marker, or interjection, no, exclamation marker in this case, which would be you, oh you, young one, юноше vocative case, все смотрством окроил. So this is the first difficult one. Все, so completely, all, строилство, окроил. Окроил, in all these Slavic you have a word окрой, окрои, meaning одежда, so clothes. So is dressed, you, young one, dressed in appearance. Смотрством. So this would probably be смотреть, right, to look, but a noun, so dressed in appearance. And then it gets difficult. Всякой бовещи, every exclamation marker, вещи, thing, и время дается, and time is given. Но како, кому добре поведеться. But how, to whom, so dative, how, to whom, good, order, every thing in time given, but how, how, to whom, good, ordered. This is tough. And then we continue. If someone knows or someone understands it, please let me know. So then we go on. Поведься же яко ер в припряжных. Again, this will be like, it will act же like, so this is как in modern Russian, ер. So it will act like a yer in something. A dog and I looked for this. We couldn't find this word anywhere. No forms of this word are, we couldn't find anything. So you can find it somewhere. Подначала быв, so something like быв в делах непродажных. So this could be like непродажных, so in fair business, в делах, in things, под началом. So под началом, быть под началом means быть под руководством. So something like you will be under guidance in fair business. But this is, it's really, these four sentences are really difficult. Ер. Всякой бовещи время дается, но како кому добре поведаться. Поведеться же, яко ер в припряжных, под начало быв в делях непродажных. And the last sentence does written, oh no, okay. So, ер в слове дебел место занимает. So this one does make sense. So, ер, so the letter in slovie, so in words is thick, right? Two C's. So the yer is thick and takes up a lot of space. Smiren человек, so this is a shortened form. Again, in Southern Slavic, this would be peaceful or not quiet, but like calm. In this text, it means humble. A humble man, a humble person in sky поступает. So will enter sky or heaven, something like that. Небо or небо in this case usually only means sky, but from the context of this text, we could probably presume that this would be something like heaven. So these four sentences are really complex and difficult. So письменность деер так образ носит, в слогах речений в письме место просит. Где Бог в начале кую вещь устроил, ты, бо юноше, все смотрством окроил. Всякой бо вещи и время дается, но како кому добре поведется. Поведется же яко ер в припряжных под начало быв в делях непродажных. Ер в слове дебел место занимает, смирен человек в небо поступает. So guys, if anyone does understand this, with maybe you speak another Slavic language, please let me know. I'm interested. I'm really interested because it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Let's see. So we covered these four letters. We have ch. This again, I forgot to say this, but this is the Polish form, right? This is the form that you can encounter in Polish text. So cz, ch, Polish. We have sh, shte, or shte in Southern Slavic, but shch in Eastern Slavic. And yer, which doesn't have, or yer, which doesn't have a phonetic value in all these Slavic, but, or at least it does in all early Old East Slavic, right? Let's see. There you go. Yeah, you guys can still hear me. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If there are any questions, or if you guys actually know some of these things that I couldn't figure out, please let me know. Just write it in the comments below. There's, again, a few people I want to thank. Again, for the Greek stuff, Julius and Leonidas, thank you so much. Van Dog, thank you for helping me with all of the texts. Without you, this would have been a lot more difficult. Why does the spider only have 6 legs? Because 8 legs, well, the honest reason was because 8 legs looked too crowded. Like, it was too much. So 6 legs was optimal. That's why. I also want to thank my patrons, because preparing a stream like this takes up a lot of time. And even though I love it, you know, I still have to work and do other things. So thank you so much. So Felix, спасибо тебе. Valentin, тебе тоже. Grigory, thank you so much. James, thank you for helping me out. And Dvir Federacija, thank you for all of your support. So if you guys want to support the channel, you can. There's a link to the Patreon down below. And if you support, you can join the Discord server and stuff like that. So thank you to everyone who helped make this a reality. And let's see, I think that was it. I think I didn't forget anything. Also, if I made any mistakes, just write it in the comments. So report it for anti-mouse. Okay. Macedonian fly also has 7 strands. So guys, thank you so much for coming. I'm gonna bounce, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'm proud of you all, and увидимся. Давайте, пока.